And I said, this is my promise. This is my promise to you, Meemaw, to find that happiness, to get my health under control, and to finally figure out that life can be exciting, that life doesn't have to be lived behind locked doors. And as I was driving home that weekend, feeling the most inspiration, the most emotion that I've ever felt, probably the most inspiration I've felt since Mario Kart came out for Nintendo 64. And I needed something to do with it, so I called my brother. The first thing that popped in my mind, okay, I'll call my brother Jed. I said, Jed, you know, you're a pretty fat too. You can stand to lose 80 pounds. Let's do something about this. Let's be a team, and let's get this under control, and let's get a grip, and let's do it. And he immediately felt the spark to me. He said, all right, I'm in. It was around New Year's Day, so we were both feeling kind of inspired. And I said, well, you know, what are we going to do, you know? He said, well, I'm looking online, I'm going to sign us up for a 5K. I said, well, first of all, you know, what's a 5K? You know, is that those annoying runners that keep me from getting McDonald's breakfast at 8 a.m. on Saturday mornings? Is that them? And you want me to do that? No, I vowed to never do that. And I said, well, what is that? You know, it sounds scary. He said, well, it's a race. It's a running race. It's about 3.1 miles. I said, dude, come on. I can't walk. I really can't run, and I really can't run a race. You know? He said, no, listen. We don't have to run the whole thing. We can walk, we can jog, we can do whatever. And it made sense. It clicked in my mind, okay, yeah, that sounds fun. So what, you know, we could do this in 6 months, 7 months, something like that, train up for it. He said, well, actually it's in 17 days. I said, now you're just messing with me. I weigh 360 pounds, dude. And he said, well, listen, like I said, we don't have to run the whole thing, but we're feeling this inspiration now. We're feeling this emotion now. We've got to put it into motion right now. We can't let it, you know how stuff goes. After 3 months, you lose that fire. Let's put it into action right now. And whatever happens, happens. Maybe we end up walking and it takes us 2 hours, but at least we did it. And it made sense. I'm not sure the sports physiologists and the doctors would sign off on our 17-day training plan at 360 pounds. And maybe you call it the idiocy of two brothers talking to each other, but it made sense in my head. And we signed up. And then we said, well, let's see how far we can run, because clearly that's how you do when you start running. You go and see how far you can run without stopping. We thought we were pretty big time when we made about 7 minutes of slow jogging, and I say jogging, it was a shuffle about like this. At the end of that 7 minutes, I was on the ground, very dramatic as I tend to do. You know, maybe play it up a little bit. But as depressing and humbling as it was, to realize that I was a 22-year-old college student that could not even run a quarter or a half mile, it was a starting point. It was a starting point. And 14 days later, we found ourselves at the starting line of the Martin Luther King 5K in Little Rock, Arkansas. And just standing on the line of the start with these 75 other runners in itself was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. And 40 minutes later, I crossed the finish line in what then became the coolest and most inspirational moment of my life. Not so inspirational when a 75-year-old lady walks past you at the end and beats you to the finish line and says, good job, Sonny. But inspiring nonetheless. And when I finished, my brother was there to hug my neck. He had finished about 10 minutes before me. I will say I'm faster than him now. And we hugged and we said, that was the coolest thing we've ever done. That was by far the coolest thing we've ever done. And then we went to Waffle House. And over our all-star breakfast, I looked at him and I said, well, what's next? That was the coolest thing we've ever done, but what's next? We can't just do that and then be done and probably go back to our old lifestyle. So we signed up for another 5K, and we did another 5K, and then we signed up for another 5K, and we did another 5K, and then we signed up for a 10K, 6.1 miles after, having not been barely able to walk 3 months before. That was the coolest moment of my life was the 10K. It was the bloody nipple incident. I just had it all the way down, and it was ridiculous, out of control. I didn't even feel it until the shower.